When the internet came around, it transformed most people's lives. Everyone I knew was eager to own a computer. A few years back, we finally joined the digital age and purchased one. Initially, it was the new toy in the house. My wife, Karen, used it for emails and games, while our kids, Ethan and Emma, played games and did their homework on it. I, on the other hand, used it for internet searches and, I admit, pornography. I often stayed late at work, leaving the factory at midnight as I worked the second shift. Unlike many guys who headed to bars, I always went straight home since I was married. Everyone would be asleep by the time I got home, and I'd sit down at the computer. Eventually, the usual stuff became boring. I didn't become addicted like some, but I did find myself visiting story websites, reading tales about everything you could imagine. I was hooked on stories about cheating wives. It was hard to believe how many women were supposedly cheating on their husbands. It planted certain thoughts in my mind. I began observing my wife's behavior more closely. During our dates, I'd mention how she danced too closely or was too friendly with other men, which led to arguments. Though Karen was attractive, I had no reason to distrust her. Still, I found myself snooping through the laundry or checking our emails, feeling silly about it all. I read fewer stories as time went on, but the thoughts lingered. I read about men catching their wives with other men and just watching them. I wondered if it really turned them on. Despite my jealousy, I didn't think it would excite me. I shared these thoughts with Karen, and she questioned why I was even thinking about such things, assuring me she only wanted me. I met Karen in our 20s at her sister's wedding. We danced and became close friends. She was a school teacher, and I worked at a factory. We started dating and got married a year later. We had Ethan the next year, and Emma 2 years after that. Karen's sister, Lisa, was a wild one back in high school. Though we never dated, she was known for being promiscuous. She'd been with almost every guy on our soccer team. Once, after a game, she participated in a threesome with me and another teammate. No one forced her. She did it willingly and more than once. Lisa's husband, Mark, was a day shift supervisor at my workplace before transferring to another plant. I didn't like Mark much, knowing his wild nature. My dislike grew when I suspected he was hitting on Karen after our wedding. Karen brushed it off as him being polite, but I knew better. I warned her to let me know if he tried anything so I could deal with him. She assured me she was mine and mine alone. We agreed to avoid discussing past relationships since we were both jealous types. I didn't want to run into one of her past flings, and I certainly didn't want to explain my history with her sister. When Ethan was 8 and Emma was 6, they were both in school, and Karen and I got along fairly well, aside from the usual fights. We worked different shifts, which meant we didn't see each other much. I was alone during the day, and she handled the kids at night. It wasn't ideal for a marriage, but it was our reality. One day, as I was getting ready for work, Karen asked if I could fix the plumbing at Lisa's house. Her kitchen sink was leaking, and Mark was useless at repairs. I laughed, but Karen quickly clarified she meant the actual sink, not her sister. I agreed to stop by before work. Karen kissed me goodbye and headed off with the kids. Thoughts of Lisa crossed my mind, remembering Mark's tales about their swinging lifestyle. They didn't have kids, as Lisa believed it would ruin her figure. She had a decent figure, but no better than Karen's, and Karen had 2 kids. Lisa often flirted with me, but I always kept it light. She wasn't worth risking my marriage over. I arrived at Lisa's and found her in a sexy bathrobe. She offered me coffee, and after a brief chat, I inspected the sink. It was just clogged with eggshells and potato peels. I lay on my back to fix the siphon when Lisa leaned over me, touching me provocatively. "Lisa, what are you doing? Stop it," I told her, trying to focus on the job. She backed off momentarily, but when I finished and stood up, she asked, "Are you going to sleep with me now?" "No, Lisa, I can't do that. Karen is your sister and I love her. I won't cheat on her, especially not with you." "Have you forgotten how it was in high school? Are you too good for me now?" she asked. "Lisa, please, I love Karen. She doesn't know about our past unless you tell her. You're beautiful, but I love my wife." "You stupid, stupid man," she hissed. "Either you sleep with me or I'll tell Karen you did anyway. She'll believe me because I'm her sister." "Why did you do this? Why hurt us? Karen is your sister and loves you," I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. Lisa just laughed mockingly. "Oh, my little prude thinks she's a saint. Let's see how she reacts when I tell her." "Lisa, don't do this. I won't sleep with you, and I'll tell Karen about our past in school. I know she'll understand, I replied, grabbing my tools. I'm done with your damn sink, I said, jumping into my truck and driving to work. My head was spinning. Would Lisa make up some story and lie to Karen? When I got to work, I called Karen, but she wasn't home yet. I left a message. Karen, I love you and need to tell you something about your sister when I get home tonight. I tried to focus on my job, but it was hard with everything running through my mind. Around 6 p.m. I called home again, but still no answer. I called Karen's mom and asked if she knew where Karen was. She left with Lisa and Mark. The kids are here with me. Karen asked if I could watch them for a few hours, and I said I'd keep them overnight. Is something wrong, Benjamin? No, it's okay. If you see her, tell her I love her, and I'll see her tonight, I replied, trying to sound calm. It felt like one of the longest nights of my life. I knew I had to tell Karen about my history with her sister. It happened before I even met Karen, and I was sure she would understand. Finally, my shift ended and I headed home. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Lisa's car parked there. It was time to face the truth. I went to open the door, but it was locked. I used my key and was shocked by what I saw in the living room. My wife Karen was lying on the couch, holding Lisa's hand, while Mark was pulling up his pants. Everyone flinched when I walked in. Lisa had a smug smile, and Mark smirked. Karen looked half scared and drunk. I was beyond furious. I charged at Mark and punched him hard, knocking him down. Behind me, I heard screaming. I didn't know if it was Karen or Lisa. I hit Mark several times before I felt a sharp pain at the back of my head. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. A man in uniform stood beside me. I see you're awake. I'm Sam Rollman Michael Reed. Where am I? Where is my wife? What happened to me? I asked, my head throbbing. Calm down, Mr. Coleman. You have a concussion from being hit on the head with a glass vase. Apparently, you got into a fight at home and the police were called. They were going to charge you with assault, but the charges were dropped. You were lucky. You could have faced 18 months in jail. What about the attack on me? Someone hit me on the head, I said, trying to understand. According to witnesses, you came home and started fighting with your brother-in-law. To stop the fight, his wife hit you with a vase. You were hit only once, just to stop the fight. You should thank them for not pressing charges. Where was my wife when you arrived? When we got there, your wife was throwing up. Your sister-in-law said she had too much to drink, and you got angry. When you headed towards her, your brother-in-law tried to stop you, and you fought him. He was only defending himself. Your wife said she doesn't remember much, just you yelling at her. If the charges are dropped, why are you here? I asked, still piecing things together. My supervisor asked me to wait and get your statement since you weren't home yet. So what happened? I have nothing to say. I wasn't going to tell anyone that I caught my wife with another man. I just lay there in silence. All right, have it your way. According to the doctor, you'll need to stay here until tomorrow. I suggest you think about what happened and be grateful no charges were filed. You're a lucky man, Mr. Coleman, the officer said before leaving. I lay there with a terrible headache, thinking about my next steps. I couldn't live with a cheating wife, but I had to know why she did it. I called my sister Kate to pick me up the next morning. I had no way to get home, and I didn't want Karen picking me up. While waiting for Kate, the phone rang. It was Karen. Do you want me to come and get you? We need to talk now that we're even, she said. Even? What the hell are you talking about? You slept with Mark and you're saying we're even? Kate's coming to get me. I just want to pick up a few of my things and I'm leaving. What do you mean leave? I was just getting even with you for what you did, Karen replied. I'm not going to discuss this over the phone. Kate and I will come get my stuff, and we'll talk then, I said, hanging up and waiting for Kate. She arrived a few minutes later, and we headed to my house. I asked Kate to wait in the car. She liked Karen, and I didn't want her involved. I knocked on the door, and Karen opened it. Where are the kids? I asked. They're still at my mom's, she replied. Did you get my message? Yes, and Lisa told me how you forced her to have sex. How could you do that? She cried softly. I didn't do anything like that. That's why I left the message. I went to Lisa's house to fix her plumbing. She hit on me, but I refused. She threatened to tell you we had sex even though we didn't. I don't believe you. Why would my sister lie to me? She's jealous of our marriage. She wanted to break us apart, and she succeeded. Why do you think she let Mark sleep with you? They are swingers and wanted to drag you into it. You let Mark have sex with you, and now our marriage is over. No, that's not true. I did it to get even with you. Lisa knew you weren't circumcised and that you had a mole on your upper thigh. Your sister is lying. She knew that because I slept with her in high school, like most of the guys. I never told you because I had feelings for you and didn't want to risk losing you. When you said we shouldn't discuss our past relationships, I decided to leave it all behind. I'm unsure what to believe. Lisa is my sister, and you are my husband. You didn't even bother to ask or call me about it. Instead, you allowed Mark to proceed. Do you honestly think it would have solved the issue if I had raped your sister? You must have wanted badly to be convinced by them. But Lisa claimed. I don't care what your sister claimed. This isn't just about Mark. It's about you not respecting me and not trusting me enough to at least hear the accusations against me. If I had raped her, why didn't she contact the police? She said she didn't want to cause a family scandal. She wanted to protect you. She had no qualms about hitting me over the head and calling the police last night. She didn't scream rape because it never happened. You can believe whoever you wish, but this marriage is over. Why would you want to stay with a rapist? No, you wanted Mark, and you used me as an excuse. No, that's not true. I love you. You need to understand what love means. It doesn't include sleeping with other men. I'll gather a few of my things and come back next week for the rest while you're gone. I'll go to a lawyer first thing Monday and start the divorce process. Benjamin, wait! This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Lisa said she forgave you and that you would forgive me. I just wanted to get even with you. No, you just slept with Mark and your sister. I grabbed my suitcase and began packing a few personal items. What should I tell the kids? Tell them whatever you like. I don't care. I don't want to see you anymore. I'll arrange visits through a lawyer, and Kate can bring the kids so I can see them. I never want to speak to you again. I opened the door and stepped out. Kate drove me to a budget motel until I could find another place. On the way, I told Kate the entire story. She was my sister and best friend, and she knew I was telling the truth. I knew she would help look after Karen and the kids. Weeks passed, and it was incredibly difficult for me. I worked extra hours to cover my increased expenses. I found a cheap guest house that I rented by the week. I mostly ate at a bar or a corner diner. I met with a lawyer and, lacking any evidence, simply requested a dissolution of our marriage. He told me that Karen didn't want it, but would agree to whatever I wanted. Everything was split 50-50ths. We rented a house and she took over the payments. Our savings were divided equally, and she had to give me half the value of our belongings. I had to pay child support, which didn't bother me because I loved my children and missed them dearly. The problem was, I also missed Karen, but I knew it was over between us. I attended every school function I could without interfering with work. Both of our children had birthdays, and I went to their parties as long as I didn't have to be around Karen's family. I made polite conversation with Karen, but whenever she wanted to discuss us, I left. I saw my kids every weekend and occasionally during the week, depending on my work schedule. Karen probably called me almost every day until the divorce. If she wanted to discuss the kids or household chores, I listened. When she wanted to talk about us, I hung up. One day I stopped by my sister's house for dinner and played with the kids. Kate told me that Lisa was still insisting on her story about me forcing her to have sex. She said Karen was torn between Lisa's story and mine. I tried to explain to Kate that neither of us had proof. It was just my word against Lisa's, and Karen believed her. That was what hurt the most. One afternoon while I was at home, the phone rang. It was the school. They told me that Ethan wasn't feeling well and asked if I could pick him up. Of course, I agreed and went to get him. He had a cold and was coughing. Karen taught middle school, so I called her to let her know I was picking up Ethan. She said she would be home as soon as possible. I took Ethan home, put him to bed, and took his temperature. He had a slight fever, but nothing serious. About an hour later, Karen came home with Ethan. She quickly went in to see how Ethan was doing. As she went in to see him, the phone rang. Without thinking, I answered it out of habit. It was Lisa. "What are you doing there?" she asked. "Well, if it isn't a liar. Ethan was sick and I brought him home." "Don't worry, you ruined the marriage," I said, reaching down to hit the record button on the answering machine. It was the kind that recorded both sides of the conversation. "Is he all right?" "Why do you care? You separated his parents. Why do you care about him? Look, Benjamin, this just got out of hand. You knew we were swingers, and Mark wanted a taste of my little sister. If you had had sex with me like I asked you to, it never would have gotten out of hand. But no, you came home and started fighting. You told Karen I raped you, and then made Mark rape Karen. What kind of damn sister are you? Mark never raped her. She gave herself to him willingly. Hell, she'd probably go along with it again if Mark tried. She was drunk, and you put all that in her head, and then stood by while your husband did her. The problem is, Benjamin, you can't prove it. I told you from the beginning that she'd believe me over you, and now you know. If you need to get laid, call me. Tell Karen to call me later. I hope my nephew is feeling better. She hung up and I turned off the recorder. Karen asked who had called, and I told her, "Your wonderful angel of a sister who will never lie to you." What did she want? I recorded her message. She said to call her back. Well, I'll see you in court Thursday. I guess we can call it a day of freedom. Don't forget to listen to the message, I said as I headed to my truck. After about 5 minutes, my cell phone started ringing again and again. It must have rung 10 times by the time I got home. When I finally picked up, I heard Karen's voice. "Benjamin, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. I just talked to Lisa, and she told me the truth about not being raped. That's good to hear, but it doesn't change anything for me. You slept with Mark and didn't even give me a chance to explain. After I told you the truth, you still chose to believe your sister, thinking I was a rapist. I loved you and probably always will, but I also hate you for what you did to our family, and for distrusting me." On Thursday, I took 2 days off work and went to my attorney's office to sign the divorce petition. I wanted to leave before Karen arrived. I felt extremely depressed as I headed to the neighborhood bar. I was already setting up my drinks when I noticed Mark walk in. He didn't see me as I walked up and gave him a cold punch. When he went down, I hit him again and again. I started kicking him until he was just a heap on the floor. I bent over to kick him again when 3 guys pulled me away. I remember shouting, "I hope you die in hell," and continued kicking until I was dragged away. The police officers threw me to the floor, handcuffed me, and took me to the patrol car. This time, I was taken to jail. I was allowed 1 phone call, so I called my sister Kate. I told her what I had done and that she didn't need to post bail. It would be too expensive, and I was going to serve my time. She cried when I hung up the phone. Karen came to the jail to see me, but I refused to see her. It took almost 2 months for my case to go to court. I was charged with assault and pleaded guilty. I was sentenced to 2 years minus time served. I asked Kate to take my few belongings and store them in her basement. She told me that Karen was feeling very ill and wanted to see me, but I refused. I know you don't want to hear this, but Karen really loves you. Her family is furious about what Lisa said about you. And there's something else you should know. Karen never showed up to sign the divorce decree, so you're going to jail still married. Prison was not a place you want to be. It felt like another world. I got into fights constantly to prove myself. My cellmate, known as Hunter, was serving a life sentence. He had come home one day to find his wife with another man and had killed them both. He had also killed another inmate the year before. I tried to hold on as long as possible, but the other prisoners constantly tested me. In the first 2 months, I was taken to the infirmary twice due to cuts. Fights happened almost daily. Eventually, I earned some respect and wasn't bothered as much. Hunter even started talking to me. On visiting day, I decided to see who had come. I thought it would be Kate or my father, but it was Karen. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my distance despite wanting to hug her. "Benjamin, I love you and have made so many mistakes. I brought pictures from the kids. They miss you. And so do I," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Look, I have a different life now. Just take care of my kids and tell them I love them." She handed me some recent school pictures of the kids. "Benjamin, I didn't sign the divorce papers. I will wait for you, no matter how long it takes. I made a terrible mistake, but I know we can get through this if you still love me." I didn't know what to say. Of course, I still loved her, but I hated what she had done and her disbelief in me. I walked back to my cell without looking back. Working in the kitchen, I overheard a conversation about someone planning to go after Hunter for killing his friend. They were going to corner him in the dining hall the next night. I didn't want to be a snitch, but I couldn't let him die. I decided to tell Hunter, hoping it would earn his trust. The next day, I told Hunter what I had heard. He wasn't sure whether to believe me. I told him to believe whatever he wanted. I didn't say anything to the guards, but I did tell him. He looked me in the eye and said, "You can tell a lot about a person by looking into their eyes." He told me to stay away from him the next day and that he would handle the situation. Hunter prepared by placing two thin hardcover books under his shirt, covering his kidneys. When the attacker came, he aimed for Hunter's kidneys but hit the books instead. Hunter's friends grabbed the attacker and beat him until the guards arrived. The attacker was taken to solitary confinement, and Hunter calmly sat down to finish his meal. After that day, Hunter talked to me more frequently. Inside the cell, he was a completely different person than outside. Outside, he was tough and feared as the leader of his group. Inside, he asked about Karen and the kids. He told me he had 3 grown children, but hadn't seen them since he killed their mother. His youngest daughter, Gabby, was on his side and wrote to him regularly, but he forbade her from visiting to keep her safe. I could tell he really loved his daughter. He smiled when he told me she was a lawyer. I told him my story about how Lisa had set me up and also set Karen up. "Do you still love her?" Hunter asked. "Yes, I think so, but I hate what she did to our family." "Does she still love you?" Hunter asked me. "She says she does, but I can't bring myself to forgive her." "Why not? Look around, kid. You've hit rock bottom. If a woman loved me and promised to wait, I'd consider myself the luckiest man alive. But she didn't trust me and slept with another man. You took a life for the same reason. And I regret that decision every day. Not giving her a second chance and losing my family is my biggest regret. Listen, Benjamin, holding on to a grudge will destroy you from the inside out." His words made me think. Was he right? What was my plan once I got out? I had no job, no future, and right now, no family. The next month, Karen came to visit again. She had tears in her eyes as she handed me some pictures. "The kids drew these for you," she said, placing them in the tray. The drawing showed our family together, Mom, Dad, and the kids. "They miss you, Benjamin. I miss you too. Can you ever forgive me? Can we be a family again? I'll do whatever it takes. I don't talk to Lisa or Mark anymore. I'm so sorry for not trusting you. You didn't believe me once, Karen. What happens next time someone says something about me? You'll probably believe them over me again. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I want to forgive you, but I don't know if I can. Seeing you with Mark, I can't get it out of my head. Did you even like him? No, I hated it. That's why I threw up when you walked in. The look on your face made me realize how wrong I was. I could never take it back, but I wish I could. I never would have done it if I hadn't been drunk. The only man I want is you, Benjamin, the father of our children." A couple of weeks later, Kate visited. "Benjamin, remember when I told you Karen had stopped seeing Lisa? I was driving by and saw Lisa and Mark going into the house. I don't know why they were there, but I kept driving. I thought you should know." I was thrown into confusion again. Had Karen lied to me once more? I was ready to forgive her and rebuild our life. I knew Kate wouldn't lie to me. I needed to find out why Karen was still seeing Lisa and Mark. About a month later, Hunter told me he felt he owed me. He mentioned he had been a lawyer before prison and had connections. He offered to help get me into the parole program. I didn't know whether to believe him, but he had never lied to me. As strange as it sounds, I respected Hunter. His presence commanded respect. I decided not to question him and took his word for it. A few weeks later, I was summoned to the warden's office for a meeting with the parole board. The prison governor spoke first. "Mr. Coleman, we have a parole application for you. We've reviewed your file and noticed you had a rough start here. Is that accurate?" "Yes, sir. I struggled initially but tried to adapt." "If you were released earlier, where would you live and how would you support yourself?" I needed a quick, convincing answer. "Sir, my sister is my best friend. She and her husband have offered me a place to stay until I get back on my feet." "Aren't you married, Mr. Coleman?" "Yes, sir, but we were in the process of divorcing when I was sentenced. I don't know what will happen with my wife. I'm just being honest with you." "Thank you for your honesty. We knew you had separated and wanted to see if you'd be truthful. What about employment?" "My previous employer said I was a good worker and to contact him when I got out." "What are the chances of you returning to prison? We don't look good when an early release ends up back here. I promise, sir, I never want to see these walls again." "Return to your cell, Mr. Coleman. We'll inform you of our decision by the end of the month. Yes, sir. And thank you for considering my parole. Back in my cell, Hunter asked how it went. I relayed the conversation and asked if he had a hand in it. You never know. If you get out early, I expect a box of cigarettes on my account each week, he laughed. A few days later, Karen visited again. Are you getting paroled? She asked. What did they want? What did they say? I replied nervously. They asked if we were settling in and if you could live there. I told them we had broken up, but that I'd love to have you back, she said, looking uneasy. I decided to change the subject. You said you stopped seeing Lisa, have you? She's my sister. I don't see her often. And Mark? Have you seen him? Why are you asking these questions? She looked nervous. You can't be trusted. You said you wouldn't see Lisa, but she and Mark were at the house. Did something happen with you and Mark again? Is that why you're worried about parole? Tell Mark that when I get out, I'll finish what I started. And if you're still seeing him, I'll deal with you too. Karen jumped up and fled the visitor's room. My suspicions were confirmed. I had no intention of killing anyone. I just wanted to scare them. I called Kate and told her about the conversation with Karen. She felt sorry for me and said the parole board had visited her. She told them I could stay with her as long as needed. Her husband said I was welcome there. Did they contact Mr. Carter about my job? Yes, and he said you could return. You were one of the best workers. Gosh, Kate, you've given me hope. I hope I don't get rejected. You won't. They said since you have a place to live and a job, you'll likely be released at the beginning of the month. She began to cry. Kate was right. I received a call saying I would be released next week. I was given the name of the lawyer handling my case. I was to report to the agency first thing after my release. I didn't understand why I had to meet an attorney instead of a parole officer. The law firm had arranged my release. They were to meet me, fill out forms, explain my parole conditions, and then send me to a parole officer. I thanked Hunter, and he reminded me about the cigarettes. I promised they were coming. I didn't know if he had anything to do with my parole, but it was worth a box of cigarettes a week to be free. When I stepped outside the gate, Kate was there, crying. I hugged her and gave her a kiss. Welcome back, brother. I walked into Kate's house and her husband welcomed me warmly. I felt truly welcome there. I asked about Karen, and Kate told me that after our conversation in jail, Karen had contacted a lawyer and signed the divorce papers to finalize the dissolution of our marriage. It seemed my suspicions about Karen were accurate, but now I was free. I knew I needed to go to Karen's house and arrange to see the kids. I called first to ensure she was home. I didn't want any unexpected incidents that could land me back in jail. I assured her that I wasn't coming to cause trouble. We could even talk on the porch. I just wanted to set up regular visits with the kids. She agreed but warned me she'd call the police if I caused any disturbance. When I arrived, my children ran up to me shouting, "Daddy, Daddy, you're back!" I hugged them tightly, missing them more than I could express. I talked to them for a few minutes and then told them to ride their bikes while Karen and I talked on the porch. Why are you here, Benjamin? You've made it clear we're never going to be a family again. We're moving on. Karen, these are my kids too, and I want them in my life. I was ready to forgive you, but you lied to me again. You went back to Mark and Lisa. Benjamin, you were in prison, and I was lonely. Don't twist things. I know you two slept together. I don't care who you're seeing. I'm here to tell you that if I find out my kids are exposed to that perverted lifestyle, I'll do everything to take them away from you. This isn't an empty threat. My kids mean everything to me, and I want them to have a good life. Benjamin, I would never hurt our kids. You tore our family apart because of Mark. I'm going to make sure my kids stay away from people like that. Tomorrow, I'll meet with my new lawyer to understand my rights. I don't trust you anymore. You showed me who you really are. We may be separated, but I'll ensure our kids grow up in a good environment. I promise, Benjamin, I'm done with that lifestyle. Yes, I tried it, but it's not for me or our kids. You'll see I've changed. I don't trust you, Karen. Actions speak louder than words. The kids came over and I chatted with them about school and their activities. I told them I was living with Aunt Kate, but would soon find a place closer to them and spend more time with them. I kissed and hugged them goodbye and headed back to Kate's. The next morning, I went to the law firm that had helped me. It felt odd since I hadn't spoken to the lawyer who got me paroled. I approached the receptionist and showed her the card from the parole board. May I speak to Mr. G.J. Adams, please? I have an appointment. I'm Benjamin Coleman. The receptionist smiled. Miss Adams will see you shortly. Please have a seat, Mr. Coleman. I was puzzled. I had assumed G.J. Adams was a man. While I was pondering this, a beautiful woman in a dark blue suit approached me, smiling with dimples and shoulder-length brunette hair. She extended her hand. Benjamin Coleman, I presume? She said. I'm G.J. Adams. I know we haven't met yet, but I've been asked to look into your situation. Please step into my office. Mary, hold my calls, she instructed the receptionist. I followed her into her office, captivated by her presence. Well, Mr. Coleman, we finally meet. Please call me Benjamin. I owe you my life and don't know why you did it. Benjamin, a friend of mine asked me to review your case. Your lawyer let you plead guilty without really helping you. There were many factors that should have been considered. You had just signed divorce papers, and the person who caused your divorce showed up where you were. You weren't in your right mind. These factors could have reduced your sentence. I pointed this out to the parole board, and they agreed to some extent. Why, Miss Adams? Why help me? Who asked you to? Does it matter who hired me? You can call me GJ. I befriended a man in prison they called Hunter. He promised to help with my parole. He mentioned having a favorite daughter named Gabby who was a lawyer. Are you that daughter? Her eyes softened. Yes, Hunter is my father. He asked me to handle your case. He's never done that before, so he must have really liked you. For my father's sake, I'd do anything. Can I call you Gabby? You're too pretty for GJ and I don't want to call you Miss Adams. What does GJ stand for? Gabriella Jew Adams. Now you know why I chose GJ. Look, Benjamin, we have some things to discuss. Would you join me for lunch? It's not a date. It's lunch. I have to work soon and need to eat. If you don't want to call it a date, you can pay and call it a business meeting. Don't you take clients to lunch sometimes? She smiled, showing her dimples. Yes, I take clients to lunch. Let me inform Mary we're leaving, and then we can go. We went to a nice, quiet restaurant. After ordering, she told me about meeting my parole officer. She said he was decent, but that I'd have to follow the rules and stay out of trouble. I was to meet with him twice a month for a few months, and then once a month for the rest of the year. Gabby, you know everything about me. Can you tell me something about yourself? Benjamin, it's not appropriate to discuss my personal life with a client. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I love your dimples when you smile. Benjamin, please, I don't date clients, but thanks for the compliment, she said, blushing. Tell me about your legal background. As a client, I have a right to know. She smiled slightly. Okay, Benjamin, I got my law degree on a scholarship and have been an attorney for several years, specializing in criminal law. Lunch arrived and we ate. Gabby was on my mind. Will I see you again, Gabby? You'll need to come back next week to fill out the paperwork from your parole officer. Why don't we have lunch again? I'll even buy you a treat. She softened a bit. Okay, but it's strictly for business. After lunch, we returned to the office. When she extended her hand to say goodbye, I held it in both of mine for a moment. I hoped she didn't think I was a freak. We said our goodbyes, and I told her I was already looking forward to lunch next week. Her secretary smiled as we parted. Clients don't usually see their attorneys socially, but then again, most attorneys weren't like Gabby. I went back to work feeling great and finished my tasks quickly. Returning to work felt like riding a bike. You just get back on and start pedaling. The familiar faces were still around, and it seemed like they respected me more now. No one dared mess with me. For the next couple of Mondays, I had appointments with Gabby. She tried to keep things strictly professional, but I was eager to learn more about her. On the fourth week, she told me our business relationship was ending. Will you still be my lawyer? I asked. Absolutely. If you encounter any problems, just give me a call, she assured me. Gabby, I'm afraid I need to let you go. I'm really sorry. What? Let me go? Have you lost your mind? I helped you get out of jail for free and now you want to fire me? Yes, because you said you don't date clients, and I want to take you on a real date. Dinner, maybe dancing. I want to get to know you better. I know I'm just an ex-con and a factory worker, but I think you want to know me too. For the past 3 weeks, I could have just called to get the information you asked for. I believe you want to see me too. Benjamin, I'm a bit attracted to you, but this isn't about being an ex-con or a laborer. You're my client and I'm your lawyer. What will people think? Who cares what people think? Just come with me once. If you don't enjoy it, you don't have to go again. Follow your heart, come with me Saturday night. I know I just got out of jail, and I've been locked up for a while. I don't know where this will lead, but I want to give it a shot. Oh God, I know I shouldn't do this. But okay, I'll go once. Just so you know, I'm not going to sleep with you. Oh God, I can't believe I just said that, Gabby replied. That Saturday, I borrowed a car from my sister because I didn't want to drive Gabby in my old truck. She gave me her address, which turned out to be a townhouse. When she opened the door, she looked stunning. I wanted to hug her right then, but I knew I had to play it cool. We went to an upscale restaurant, ordered wine, and had dinner. Afterward, we decided to chat while listening to music. Gabby, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? You must have been married because your last name is different from your father's. Benjamin, my parents didn't get along well, as you know. Dad's been in prison for 14 years. My siblings and I were raised by our aunts and uncles. I'm the youngest and was 14 when it all happened. It was tough on us. My brother and sister have never forgiven my father. They love him but can't forgive him. I knew my mom was cheating on him and told him. I argued with my mom, but she said I was just a kid and didn't understand. 2 weeks later, my dad caught her with another man. I partly blame myself. If I had stayed quiet, things might have been different. Gabby, you're not responsible for your mom's death or your dad's imprisonment. They were adults making their own choices, and you were just trying to do the right thing. After my father went to prison, I decided to become a lawyer to help him get a lighter sentence. That's why I chose criminal law. My father, a brilliant lawyer, was proud of me, but there wasn't much I could do for him. Have you been married before? Yes, I was married briefly. My boyfriend and I got married during my freshman year of college after I got pregnant. We quickly realized our marriage was a mistake. I had a miscarriage and we decided to divorce. I kept the last name Adams because my father suggested it to distance me from his last name, Davis. I was glad she opened up to me. She asked about my kids, and I told her they wanted to meet her. I mentioned that I had told them about her, and my daughter was eager to meet her. Gabby, would you like to meet my sister and my kids? We're having a family barbecue next Saturday. I knew it was a big step if she agreed to come. Meeting my family was significant for us getting closer. She hesitated, took a deep breath, then kissed me. Okay, Benjamin, count me in. What should I bring? I don't know what women usually bring. I'll ask Kate to call you. When I told Kate about Gabby coming to the barbecue, more family members decided to attend. They all wanted to meet the new woman in my life. My parents, cousins, aunts, and uncles showed up. Gabby said she would make potato salad. Kate mentioned how sweet Gabby's voice sounded when she called, hoping something would happen between us. I visited Karen's house every weekend to pick up my kids. We often went to Kate's or somewhere fun. I always asked about their mother, trying to be polite. Ethan mentioned she was dating someone, which worried me until Emma said he was a schoolteacher named Sam. He taught health classes and coached soccer. I asked Karen about him. Benjamin, I'm trying to turn my life around. Sam is a good guy. His wife died of leukemia 2 years ago, and he moved here to start over. He has a 15-year-old daughter. Ethan and Emma like her. Karen, your lies and cheating ruined our relationship. If you care about this man, be honest and treat him right. Don't mess things up like you did with us. Sam loves our children and treats them well. He knows about you and respects that you're their father. I hope everything works out for us. I hope I haven't ruined things for you with other women. You're a good man, Benjamin, and I know you'll find the right woman. I'm sorry I caused you so much pain. I said goodbye and drove home. I found a small apartment about a mile from where Karen and the kids lived. It had 2 bedrooms so the kids could stay over. I still stopped by Kate's a couple of times a week to eat and visit. When the day of the barbecue arrived, I was nervous. I waited outside for Gabby. When she pulled up, she smiled and handed me a bowl of potato salad. You better eat some, she said with a smile. She looked beautiful, and I felt so good around her. I knew I had fallen in love with her, even though we had only kissed. Some things you just know. I hoped she felt the same way. I introduced her to everyone as my good friend. When I introduced her to my parents, she smiled and hugged each of them. My dad said right in front of her, "Don't mess this up, Benjamin. We already love her, and we don't even know her." Gabby looked at me and smiled. I took that as a good sign. When I introduced her to Kate, they both looked at me. Benjamin, I never told you, but I met your sister when I was interviewing people for your parole. I didn't mention it because it never came up until now. I never imagined we would become friends. I told you I would never lie to you, and that's why I'm telling you this now. Kate and I hadn't spoken since Parole until she called me about the potato salad. Is there anyone else you've talked to that I should know about? Yes, Karen, your ex-wife Lisa, and of course Mark. I talked to your boss to ensure you would have a job, the witnesses from the bar fight, and the police who arrested you. I did all this as your attorney. I never imagined I'd fall in love with you, especially since we'd never met. I'm sorry I didn't tell you all this, but I needed to find out the truth before supporting you. If you want me to leave, just tell me, and I'll go. Leave? You just said you were in love with me, and that's all I heard. I grabbed her and kissed her, then hugged her and introduced her to the rest of the family. I told Gabby I'd be back in a few minutes. I had to pick up the kids, who were eager to meet her. When I returned, Emma came over and introduced herself to Gabby. Hi, I'm Emma. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? You're really pretty, just like Daddy said. Hi, Emma. You can call me Gabby or GJ. You're a very pretty girl. It's nice to meet you. Emma said, Come meet my older brother. He's 10 and afraid of girls. Ethan, this is GJ, Daddy's friend. I saw Ethan shaking Gabby's hand. She knelt down to talk to them on their level. I could tell they were going to become friends. Ethan told me, We like her, Daddy. She's so pretty and sweet. The barbecue was great. Toward the end of the evening, I felt hopeful about the future. I was chatting with Gabby when Ethan and Emma bounded over to us. Dad, remember how you promised to take us to the amusement park in 2 weeks? Can Gabby come with us? That way, when Emma and I go on the rides, you'll have someone to talk to. I gently explained to Ethan that those kinds of questions should be asked in private. Maybe Gabby had other plans, or perhaps she didn't like amusement parks. He turned to Gabby and said, Sorry, Gabby, I didn't realize you didn't like amusement parks. Gabby laughed and knelt down to Ethan's level. Sweetheart, what your daddy means is that you should ask him in private first. But to answer your question, I love amusement parks and would be thrilled to go if your dad says it's okay. Maybe we can ride the roller coaster together. Needless to say, we all went to the amusement park. The kids were ecstatic and rode everything they could. Gabby kept her promise to Ethan, riding the roller coaster and even the Ferris wheel with him. On the way home, Emma said, Dad, you need to get a car instead of the truck. Gabby can't always use her car because we all can't fit in your truck. Gabby and I laughed, but Emma was right. In the following weeks, I didn't see Gabby much. Work kept me busy on weekends, and she had court cases. We talked on the phone, but it wasn't the same. One Saturday, I picked up the kids, and we decided to go to Family Entertainment Center. Just as we were about to leave, Emma asked if she could call Gabby to invite her. Not wanting to let her down, I called Gabby. Hey Gabby, it's Benjamin. Emma wanted me to call you. What are you doing tonight? Oh, hi Benjamin. I was planning to go out with friends. Why do you ask? Nothing much. Have a good time. Benjamin, put Emma on the phone. I want to hear what she has to say. I handed the phone to Emma. Hey Gabby, Dad's taking Ethan and me to Family Entertainment Center for pizza and games. We were wondering if you'd like to join us. Yeah? Okay, I'll tell him. We miss you too. Bye. I looked at Emma, feeling bad. I'm sorry, honey, but she already has plans. What do you mean, Dad? She said she'd be here in half an hour. She even said she's getting a car so she doesn't have to use hers all the time. And she misses us, Dad. That evening, after the pizza party where Gabby's gaming skills helped the kids win several stuffed animals, I took the kids back to their mom's house. Gabby and I then went to my apartment and sat on the couch. Gabby, you know I love you, right? I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I want you to make love to me. I haven't trusted anyone in a long time. All I ask is that you be gentle and caring. I want to feel loved, not used. We started on the couch and moved to the bedroom, where we spent the night in each other's arms, exploring our love for one another. It felt incredible to hold her close after such a long time. Gabby stayed the night, and the next morning, I made French toast. She emerged from the bedroom in one of my t-shirts, looking stunning. Gabby, what's next for us? I love you, my kids love you, and my family loves you. What do you want to happen next? Benjamin, we've only known each other a few months, and last night was our first time making love. I know it's been a short time, but I want you in my life every day. If we haven't made love enough, We can go back to the bedroom and spend all day there, I joked. Gabby smiled. Benjamin, I want to be with you too. Will you marry me? Tears welled up in her eyes. Benjamin, I don't take love lightly. I made a mistake once before, but yes, I will marry you. I will always be there for you and the kids. I know what you went through, and I will always be honest with you. I will never cheat on you, and I expect the same from you. She kissed me passionately. Honey, you look happy but also sad. What's wrong? I'm thinking about my dad and how happy he would be. Most girls dream of their dad walking them down the aisle. I know that won't happen for me, and it makes me sad. My father didn't even know I was getting married last time. By the time I wrote him, I had miscarried and was on my way to a divorce. I'm sorry, Benjamin. I shouldn't be thinking about this now. I'm going to marry the man my father approves of, and who I was in love with from the first time I met him. You loved me from the beginning? Yes, I wanted you from the first time I saw you. I know you knew that. She smiled sweetly and asked when we should tie the knot. I told her that all the arrangements would be on her terms. We agreed to get married as soon as possible. I asked if I could start telling everyone, and she agreed. We decided on a date 2 months from now. For the next few days, I was ecstatic. I told Kate and her husband, and they were thrilled for us. I needed to tell the kids, so I called their house and had them both on the phone. They were overjoyed and said how much they liked Gabby. I told them the wedding would be in a couple of months, but I wanted them to be some of the first to know. I walked into Gabby's office, and her secretary congratulated me. Gabby had already told everyone and invited them to the wedding reception. When I entered her office, Gabby was quietly crying. What's wrong, Gabby? I called the prison and spoke to the warden. I asked if my dad could get a day's leave to attend our wedding. He said no. My dad isn't allowed to leave the prison under any circumstances. He said it was out of his hands. I'm so sorry, Gabby. I know your father's presence means a lot to you. It's worse, Benjamin. My dad's cancer is back. He has 3 to 6 months to live. She started to cry, and I held her close. Why, Lord? Why did you do this to her? She's a good person. Gabby, I've been buying your father cigarettes since I got out. It was a deal I made with him. It's not your fault, Benjamin. Dad doesn't smoke anymore. He uses the cigarettes to barter with other inmates. You didn't contribute to his cancer. I had an idea but didn't want to give Gabby false hope. I kissed her goodbye and said I'd see her the next day. I canceled work and went to the prison to see Jack and the warden. When Jack saw me, he smiled. Take good care of my little girl, Benjamin. Make her happy. She deserves it. I explained my idea to Jack, and at first he said no, but eventually he agreed. Then I spoke with the warden. Benjamin, I see you're keeping your cool and getting married. I'm sorry about Jack, but he's a life prisoner, and we can't let him out for his daughter's wedding. Warden, are you in full control of the prison and can make most decisions about the facilities? What's your point, Benjamin? Can we get married on the prison grounds? We could use the chapel, and Jack could walk his daughter down the aisle. You and Jack's daughter want to get married here in prison just to have her father around? Is that what you're asking? Yes, sir. She hasn't seen her father in over 14 years, and he's dying. All we ask is to use the chapel for the wedding. Okay, Benjamin, I'll set it up. It doesn't have to be a big celebration. You can only invite 3 outsiders besides yourself and your fiancé. I'll let Jack invite a few of his fellow inmates. You'll have to use the services of a prison attendant. I thanked the warden and went back to Jack. The warden agreed to my idea. I'm going back to tell Gabby. Thanks, Jack. I know it means a lot to our girl. Jack smiled at me. Benjamin, write down this number. When you go to the bank, tell Gabby to get her birth certificate. The account is in her maiden name. I wrote down the information and told Jack I was sorry for his illness. Just take care of my little girl, that's all I ask, Jack replied. I went back to Gabby's office. She saw the smile on my face and asked what was up. You don't mind getting married in prison, do you? I asked. What? What are you talking about, Benjamin? I told her about my conversation with the warden and that her father would be allowed to walk her down the aisle. She started crying happy tears. God, I love you, Benjamin. I told her about the safety deposit box, and we went to see what was in it. I'm Gabriella Lucia Davis, and I'd like to see my safety deposit box. Gabby gave him her number, and he looked at her birth certificate. He walked us over to the box, opened it, and left the room. The first thing we noticed was a note from her father. "Dear Gabby, if you're opening this box, it means you're either getting married or I've passed away. I hope it's the former. In the little box is your mother's engagement ring. I put it here for safekeeping. I want you to have it and wear it with pride. Your mother had her faults, but she loved you, and I know she would want you to have her wedding ring. There are also bonds here totaling over $1,000 to help pay for your wedding. I finalized them before I was sent away. When you see your brother and sister, tell them there's a box for each of them too. Only yours has a ring in it. Congratulations, and always be honest with your husband. With love, Daddy." Gabby and I discussed our wedding plans. We decided to invite her brother Eric, her sister Lisa, and my sister Kate. We planned a reception for friends and family shortly after the wedding. Gabby and Kate spent the next month preparing for the reception. Everything had to be expedited, but I wanted Gabby to have as much of her dream as possible. Kate offered to use her digital camera to take pictures. Gabby and I visited her brother and sister. She introduced me, and they said they didn't hate their father. They hated what he did. Gabby explained the wedding and why it would be in prison. Eric and Lisa were moved to tears when they learned their father was dying. They agreed to attend the wedding, and Gabby gave them their bank deposit box numbers. They were surprised that their father had set aside something for them. On the day of the wedding, Gabby and I drove to the prison together. Kate and her husband came too, but her husband waited in the car. When we entered the prison, I had a tuxedo for Jack, which a guard took to him. I was wearing a rented tuxedo. Kate went into the room with Gabby to help her with her dress, as Gabby didn't want me to see her until she walked into the chapel. I waited in the chapel. Eric and Lisa walked in. Eric was my best man, and Lisa was Gabby's maid of honor. A prisoner played the piano, and 5 other prisoners who were friends of Jack were seated by a guard. The warden came in with the priest and smiled at me. "After the ceremony, we'll have cake and punch for everyone," he said. For a warden, he wasn't a bad guy. The pianist began to play "Here Comes the Bride," and everyone stood. Gabby walked through the door, tears streaming down her cheeks, accompanied by her father. She got her wish. Her father walked her down the aisle on her wedding day. When they reached the front, everyone took their seats except for the wedding party. Another guard closed the door. The priest asked, "Do you give this woman to this man?" "Yes, sir," Jack replied proudly and sat down. "Gabriella Lucia Davis Adams, do you take Benjamin Matthew Coleman to be your husband?" The priest continued. He asked me the same question. We made sure to include, "To love and honor from this day forward." That was how we both felt. After saying our vows, I kissed the bride. She turned around and hugged her father. We went to an adjoining room to talk and have cake and punch provided by the warden. Eric and Lisa hugged their father, the first time in almost 15 years they had spoken to him. There were many tears, tears of joy and remorse. They wanted their father to know they still loved him despite everything. Kate took pictures throughout the service, capturing the tears, hugs, and even some laughter. After the ceremony, Kate and her husband took the photos to a 24-hour photo center for development and enlargement. We said goodbye to Jack and thanked the warden for making Gabby's dream come true. We noticed Eric and Lisa were still talking to their father as we left. We headed back to town for the reception. Everyone we invited was there. The first people we saw were Ethan and Emma, who ran up and hugged us. We walked into the auditorium, greeted by shouts of joy. My parents and almost everyone who greeted us had tears in their eyes. Many of Gabby's friends, whom I hadn't met, were there. About half an hour later, Kate arrived with the pictures. She had enlarged some of them and spread them out on the table for everyone to see. Eric and Lisa picked up their families before coming to the reception. Eric was with his wife and 2 children, and Lisa was with her husband and 3 children. They introduced their kids to Jack's picture, telling them it was their grandfather. Kate had taken 4 sets of pictures, and after the reception, each family could take a set home. One for Eric and Lisa, one for Gabby and me, and one for Kate. I wanted to tell you how incredible Gabby looked in her wedding dress. If she had wings, she would have looked like an angel sent to me. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and she was my wife. I think most men feel that way about their wives. We danced, ate, and danced some more. People clinked glasses, and our lips were together most of the night. People I worked with told me I was a very lucky man. Believe me, I didn't need them to say that. I knew it. I intended to hold on to that feeling forever. For those wondering, Karen and Sam did not attend our wedding. It was Gabby's day, and I didn't want anything to ruin it. Seeing her and her father walk down the aisle, her brother and sister making peace with their father, and the family becoming whole again, I will never forget that day. Update. It's been 6 months since our wedding day. Karen and Sam got married last month. I'm pleased to see that she's really trying to get her life together. My children tell me Sam is treating them well. Aunt Lisa and Uncle Mark moved to another state. I was moved to the day shift so I could see the kids more often and be home with Gabby every night. She became pregnant with our baby 3 months after we were married. Jack passed away. The kids visited him every month until his passing. It was sad, but we had time to tell him about Gabby's pregnancy. We told him it was going to be a boy and that we would name him Matthew. That brought a smile to Jack's face. Looking back, I remember everything that happened. The cheating wife, prison, meeting the woman of my dreams, and marrying her. Now I'm starting over and about to be a father again. Not a day goes by that I don't thank God for what I have. I thank Him for giving Gabby and me another chance at happiness.